Hey guys, yet another video for our Myths About Japan playlist. It seems the myths about Japan just keep coming. One of our patrons sent us a message and she said that she'd seen a story in the US about Japanese ladies being forced to wear heels. A law that said Japanese ladies had to wear heels and makeup to work, right? And so we went looking for it and we found it, and sure enough, there it was. Now, interestingly, we did actually cover this story years ago, and this quite often happens when these things come up in the mainstream international media. Quite often we've covered them years before, but we didn't add the little extra spicy piece of BS that makes them go big when these other guys report on them. We just reported the reality, and the reality is that in the workplace in Japan, women are often discriminated against. There's no doubt about that. That ladies are often paid less than their male counterparts. They're often, another example is as far as the clothes and that sort of thing is concerned, they're often made to wear uniforms, where their co-worker who's doing exactly the same job will just be wearing his own suit. And you see this all the time in the workplace, you know, so the guys are all getting around sporting their suits, looking all very professional and businesslike, and the ladies are in these sort of cloney type uniforms where the standard is sort of like a sort of a blouse with a vest and a skirt and long socks, long black socks and black shoes is pretty common. You see it all the time. You'll see it at the bank, the post office, you know, any sort of office environment you go into. And then what they're called too, you know, guys that work in that sort of environment are normally called salaryman, right? They're called salaryman, and the ladies who work in the same work environment doing exactly the same job are often called office lady. So what's your job? Oh, I'm an office lady, right? Office lady. So even their job titles are different. And then usually the pay's lower. The ladies get paid less to do the same job that the men are doing. So there's a lot of campaigning going on by various groups in Japan to equal out the playing field and to stop this, you know. And there's no doubt that there's a lot of, and this, again, this isn't all companies. There are progressive companies in Japan where this is not the case, but they're probably still rare. You know, the standard is fairly discriminatory as far as most companies are concerned, where the ladies are forced to wear, you know, these sort of, not demeaning, but, you know, it's not equal. It's not an equal field where the ladies are forced to wear these uniforms and the guys are wearing their suits and all that other stuff. So there's no doubt discrimination is rife. Sexual harassment in the workplace is still really common. Again, as with a lot of these social things that we've spoken about before, Japan, as far as technology is concerned, is very much in the 21st century, but as far as social aspects of life and society are concerned, they're still in the 1950s. So if you want to understand how it works as far as discrimination and as far as the workplace and sexual harassment and all those things, if you want to try and understand what that's like in Japan, talk to an older person about what it was like in the rest of the world in the 1950s and you'll pretty much get it, because that's pretty much where they are. And there's people, again, like it was in the rest of the world in the 1950s, there are people campaigning to level the playing field and to have equal pay and equal rules for everybody. But as with everything in Japan, change happens slowly because the decisions are generally made by a table of old men. And the old men don't want to change things. They like it the way it is, you know. And that's where the decisions get made, same as the 1950s outside Japan, right? So you know, it'll happen, but it'll happen really, really slowly, you know. And in the meantime, you know, if you come to Japan, if you're a lady and you come to Japan to work, you know, prepare yourself for this, because there's a pretty good chance that this is sort of what you're going to be up against. And it is true, as with all these myths, that there is some truth in them, you know, and it is true that there are companies here that take that one step further. So So the places that we go and we see, the post office, the bank, there's some companies that we do go to on occasion for different reasons, and you see the ladies there in their uniforms as well. But this story was right over the top. It was saying that it's mandatory. It was very cleverly worded, as often these things are, these stories that you read in the mainstream press about Japan. They're very cleverly worded just to sort of trick you into thinking that this is law or this is every case, and they do it on purpose. Look, they want people to get pissed off and emotional and click on their story. A headline that says in Japan mandatory heels and makeup for all women. That gets the clicks and the views and brings in the views and the revenue, doesn't it? It sells, and then other media sources pick up on that and run with that as well, without checking into the accuracy of it. And they love that stuff, right? And the same reason we read the story recently, or we talked about the story recently on the Myths playlist about the, what was the other one? Oh, the housework thing. Running the story that, in Japan, husbands expect their wives to do all the cooking. They love those sort of stories, and because they're really dramatic. We talked about this same topic years ago without the BS. And because, 1,000 people watched it or something, right? Because it's not, the truth, as always with these things, the truth is not so exciting or dramatic or emotional or provocative. And because they know any sort of discrimination or any sort of, any story that's about discrimination or about anything like that, they know it's going to antagonize some people, and they're going to get reactions, and that gives them lots of views, and then people are sharing it. We're talking about it now, aren't we? And this is what happens, is it shares, it spreads, and it becomes a really big thing. They get lots of views and make lots of money, which is what they're all about. They're not really interested in telling you the true story. So this was very cleverly worded, the one we saw, and it was actually a sort of reputable magazine, online magazine. I'm not going to mention the name because we're not into promoting these deceptive people. But you could see what they did. They very cleverly worded it to make it sound like it was a law, and that all ladies in Japan have to wear high heels, have to wear makeup to work, and not allowed to wear glasses because glasses will hide their faces, and the companies, they're not allowed to wear glasses to work, right? And there's no doubt that there probably are some companies that do that. I mean, we visit some places sometimes and you walk in and the ladies are all there and they all look exactly the same. They will mandate what haircuts they're allowed to have, what makeup, how the makeup's supposed to be, and they'll all be there in a row. Toyota Museum is an interesting one, in Toyota, the car museum. And there's all these ladies in there in their uniforms with their hair looking exactly the same and their makeup looking exactly the same, and everything. Airlines too, the flight attendants, quite often they'll do it too. And again, there's the robot thing, trying to make everyone look exactly the same. But to say it's a law is total BS, and to even suggest that its majority is totally BS, because most of the workplaces, heels would be impractical, and not wearing glasses would be impractical as well. Apparently there was an airline, these guys said there was an airline that said that the flight attendants weren't allowed to wear glasses because it was a danger to them or something. And there's no doubt, look, the way discrimination works here, and the old man making the decisions and running the place, there's no doubt there'll be companies that have all sorts of sexist stuff like that, make them wear short skirts and make them wear makeup and make them wear no glasses. No doubt at all it exists. But to suggest it and to report it like this is just the way it is in Japan, that in Japan it's mandatory, for ladies to wear makeup and high heels, is just total BS. So, these myths, we get shown myths like this all the time. There would not be a week that passes that we don't see at least one. Hey, have you seen this? Have you seen this story? Have you seen this story? Have you seen this story? And usually our response is, yeah, it's BS. No, we haven't seen it, it's BS. Or, yeah, we have seen it, it's BS. Or, it's half BS. Or, it's 100% BS. Or, it just never ends. And we don't report them all because it'd get boring. It'd get to the point where every video we made would be reporting on some myth from Japan. It gets boring. But we made this one because we had heard it already. And obviously it's going big, so And because one of our patrons asked us, so we like to respond to our patrons who support us. We like to respond to them, and particularly about this topic, because it's such so manipulative. You know, they know when they write that story. They know they're trying to manipulate people. They're trying to piss people off. You know, it's the same as that with that other story. They wrote it like, Japanese men are telling their wives to get in the kitchen and make them a sandwich. No, that's not what's happening. You know, that's not right. That's not right. You know, we those of you who haven't seen that, that's on this playlist too. You know, about the husbands telling their wives to get in the kitchen. It's not the way it is. You know, it's based on 5% fact, and then it's made to sound like that to piss people off. So, as we always say with these myths videos, you know, just be careful when you see or hear things about Japan. You know, even if it comes from credible sources. This is the amazing thing, is that quite often it's coming from sources that usually should be credible. You know, but again, they're all about making money and getting views, and you know, these real stories. We reported on this years ago. It's sort of frustrating too, because often that we've reported on these things years ago, and you know, 1,000 people watched because we told the truth and it wasn't really inflammatory. It didn't piss anyone off. And then now someone adds the extra spice of BS to it, and all of a sudden it's all over the world. Everybody's talking about it and looking at it, and what an interesting story, because it's BS. You know, it's just the way it is, isn't it? The truth is never what people want. You know, the ones we've made, a couple of ones we've made recently that have been truth. We knew when we made them they weren't going to be popular because it was about things that people didn't want to hear. You know, the truth is not popular. This is obviously why these news, using the term loosely, organisations are so full of BS, is because that's what sells. You know, people, the stuff that motivates people, the stuff that gets people interested are the BS stories. You know, that nobody seems to want the truth. Nobody likes the truth, we've noticed. That's not true. We know at least 184 people do, because they're the people that are supporting us on Patreon. They're the people that are wanting us to continue doing what we're doing, so we know those guys want the truth. But a lot of other people don't. You know, the responses we get to some of the truthful videos we make are really unpopular, but we're going to keep doing it. Because of those 184 people on Patreon, because of you guys, we're going to keep doing it, because that's the message we're getting from you, is you want us to keep doing it, so we will. Anyway, that was it. Yes, another myth about Japan. More videos coming soon.